The sun sits high over Crimson Mesa, burning the red stone until it glows like iron. Heat dances above the ridges, shimmering lines that distort everything beyond them. The wind is dry, sharp with dust, and the air tastes like copper. Saguaro cacti rise in silent ranks along the ridgeline, their arms reaching skyward like sentries too proud to bend. Down below, trucks idle, canopies flap, and men in fresh tactical uniforms laugh loud enough to be heard over the wind. She steps out of an old pickup truck with cracked paint and a wheezing engine. Her boots sink into the rust-colored soil. A cloth-wrapped rangefinder hangs from one hand, its casing scratched and dulled from years of use. Her field jacket is sun-faded and worn soft at the seams. No one looks her way. A man unloading a stack of spotting scopes bumps into her without apology. Another, already behind his rifle, mutters something under his breath about sand fleas. She doesn't react. The shooters line up along the concrete firing line, their gear pristine, their scopes polished. They talk over each other, voices full of confidence, the kind that grows in closed circles. One of them glances in her direction and smirks, nudging his partner. "She's here to carry clipboards," he says. She keeps walking, head turned slightly as if listening to the wind. Dust swirls at her heels. At the far edge of the range, a small tarp flaps against its frame, shading a folding chair and a rusted crate. She sets her bag down there. No welcome, no briefing, just the vast openness of the desert and the low metallic groan of the steel target swaying in the wind. She sits, silent, her hand resting on the rangefinder like it breathes with her. The sun climbs higher, dragging heat like a curtain over Crimson Mesa. Mirage bends the horizon, making distant targets shimmer like ghosts. Sand kicks in brief whirlwinds, stinging eyes and coiling in every crease of fabric. Saguaro cacti sway subtly, unmoved by the noise or the tension gathering across the line. Beneath the warped light, everything feels slightly unreal except her stillness. Sergeant Kane calls out names with clipped efficiency, pointing toward assigned benches and lanes. His voice is gravel dry, uninterested. When he reaches her name, he barely glances up. "You're with Tavis. Just call Wind. Nothing fancy." He turns before she can reply, already barking at someone else. Tavis is young, not much older than 20, and looks like he's already regretting the day. His gear doesn't quite fit. His gloves are too stiff, and his breathing is shallow as he sets up at the lane farthest from the main group. He tries to smile at her, awkward and apologetic. "I guess I'm the lucky one," he says, then winces at his own words. She nods once. No judgment. Around them, the line buzzes with the ritual noise of elite shooters preparing to prove they belong. Scopes click, magazines slap, jackets stretch over clean uniforms marked with sponsor patches. Someone leans back from lane 5 and smirks in their direction. "Look at that pair." "Daycare Lane," another calls out. "Hey, clipboard girl, you taking orders or just making weather art?" She says nothing. The clipboard she's handed is cracked at the spine, the kind of throwaway tool meant to make her feel disposable. She holds it anyway, steady and clean, writing nothing yet. Her eyes scan the landscape, each cactus, each wind shift between the gullies reading what others can't see. Shots begin echoing downrange, one by one. They miss. The steel targets remain silent. Wind gusts from the west, then drops, then rises from the canyon floor, unpredictable and dry. A veteran shooter curses and resets his scope. Mirage is crap. Nothing's holding. Another follows with, "Must be her bad luck soaking into the dirt." At lane 3, a shooter slams his rifle on the rest. "Hey, spotter girl, mind standing downwind next time." Laughter follows, low and vicious. Kane doesn't correct them. He walks past her without pause, eyes on the next shooter. She adjusts her seat slightly under the tarp, shifting, to block the sun from Tavis's sightline. Her voice remains silent. Tavis fumbles with his bolt, his hands unsure. They're just loud, he mutters, more to himself than her. You don't have to. She lifts a hand gently, stopping him. Her focus is on the air again. Heat bends along the ridgeline. A cactus near the 800-meter mark lists to the left, its ribs aligned perfectly with a narrow crosswind threading between stone outcrops. She watches it. The wind says everything. A sharp whistle cuts through the range. One of the shooters flips a coin onto the ground near her boot. Call it heads. She's real. Tails. She's just a mirage. Another calls out. Bet she's writing a poem about all this. Real sniper energy. Someone tosses a practice casing at her feet. You forgot your round, sweetheart. It clinks once on the crate beside her and rolls away. Tavis glances toward her, unsure if he should intervene. She doesn't move. Lane 6 fires and misses again. The shooter slaps his magazine against his thigh, frustrated. This wind is garbage. He growls. And someone answers. Or maybe your spotter's off eating cactus. At least that one doesn't talk back. Her gaze drifts toward a far cactus at the edge of the range, arms bent like it's shrugging at the nonsense. Behind her glasses, her eyes narrow slightly. She makes no sound. The cracked clipboard rests against her leg like a shield no one sees. A few instructors gather near the shade tent, sipping coffee from silver thermoses and watching her from behind polarized lenses. One of them nods toward her tarp. Why'd Kane even assign her? The other shrugs. Backup Phil. Optics assistant or something. Probably a hobbyist with a good GPA. They chuckle. Dismissive. Tavis. Finally set up. Looks over his shoulder and speaks carefully. You want to call the wind? She nods once. Her voice, when it comes, is low and calm. 9 o'clock. Full hold. Drop a half. He does as she says, nervous fingers tightening. He doesn't fire yet. The wind shifts again. Small dust devils skipping across the range. Her hand lifts slightly. Quarter left. Send. Her tone doesn't change. Neither does her face. Tavis breathes in and squeezes. The steel remains quiet. Mist. He exhales. Sorry. She cuts him off with a small shake of her head. Eyes already watching the cactus arms again. The mirage is thickening. Behind them, more jokes. Must be tough being the only spotter here without a shot record. She's using astrology. You think Moon's in retrograde. Better dial left. She tilts her head, scanning the rocks to the west. The wind bends a patch of dry grass. She adjusts her clipboard. .8, she says quietly. Hold even. No one hears her but Tavis. He tries again. The rifle bucks gently. In the distance, there's a faint ring. A steel target sings back at them, sharp and clean. Silence follows. The men up the line turn slightly. One mutters, luck. She lowers the clipboard into her lap. A breeze pushes the tarp's edge into her shoulder. The cactus just beyond the 900-meter line leans, unmoved. Dust curls behind it, rising and fading. She's still not smiling, but she's watching everything. The heat settles into something heavier, clinging to the ground like a second skin. Mirage rolls off the sand in waves, warping the outline of the 600-meter steel target until it looks like it's breathing. Beyond it, cactus silhouettes stand still, their shadows sharp and long against the rust-colored earth. Everything hums quietly, like the range is holding its breath. Tavis wipes his palms on his pants and adjusts his grip on the rifle. The barrel points downrange, steady but uncertain. He glances at her once, hesitant. She doesn't nod or smile. She's already watching the wind. Her hand rests on the edge of her clipboard. Thumb, marking a set of calculations, scratched in faded pencil. Her voice cuts through the stillness, calm and exact. Hold 2. Quarter breath. Send. Tavis exhales and pulls the trigger. The rifle cracks. A second later, the steel target pings, high and clean like a bell cutting across heat. A few heads turn. Someone lowers binoculars. No one says anything. She watches the cactus just to the right of the next target. Its arms tilt slightly, the shadows shortening as a breeze shifts the air. She calls again. 1.8. Slight left. Send. Another shot. Another ring. Tavis blinks. Surprised. His posture changes. Not cocky. Just anchored. He steadies the rifle again. Call it, he says quietly. She does. Her instructions come in short, measured tones. She never repeats herself. She never looks away from the range. Another shot. Ping. Again. Ping. Again. Every round finds steel. Across the firing line, the tone has changed. No more jokes. No more tossed shells or fake whispers. The shooters are quieter now, adjusting scopes, resetting positions. A few glance sideways. One instructor lowers his spotting scope and looks directly at her. His expression is unreadable. Tavis breathes easier. His hands no longer shake when he loads the next round. Each time she speaks, his movement matches it. She doesn't use full sentences, just numbers. Hold. Breath. Send. And each time, the steel replies with that same clean tone, clear and irrefutable. She doesn't react to the sound. She doesn't lean forward or tighten her jaw. Her face remains neutral, her posture loose under the tarp. Dust lifts around her boots as the breeze picks up again. She watches the cactus at 700 meters now, tracking the way it shifts in the light. Its shadow bends. Her finger taps once on the clipboard. 0.9. Dead center. The next shot hits harder. The ring carries a second longer than the others, and someone behind them mutters, "Was that center mass?" Another shooter nearby shifts, mutters something under his breath, and looks downrange as if doubting his own zero. The instructor near the tower walks a few steps forward, shading his eyes. He doesn't say anything, but he stays. Tavis glances at her after each shot now. Not for approval, just waiting. She gives the call. He obeys. It becomes routine. There is no celebration, no pause to mark how unusual it is. But those listening know. The rhythm of steel has changed. Her calls are the only ones consistently answered. A gust kicks up grit across the concrete. She leans back slightly, still watching. Someone 2 lanes over misses wide. His spotter swears, recalculates. They don't get steel. Tavis does. She adjusts a paper tucked behind the clipboard, flipping it once and marking something with the side of her finger. No pen, just contact. Her boots are dusted now, cracked at the laces, soles worn from years. The men behind her wear imported brands. Their scopes gleam under the sun. Hers is covered with fabric, stitched around the lens cap to keep it from slipping. Nothing about her says elite, except the results. By the 8th shot, silence has overtaken the near side of the range. Not full silence, there are still calls. Still shots, but the atmosphere has shifted. Every man who laughed now watches sideways, pretending not to. Some reload with sharper movements. One instructor speaks quietly to another near the rear tents, both nodding toward her tarp. The phrase "perfect line" is caught in the wind. Tavis looks up after his 9th hit. "You ever shoot yourself?" he asks. His voice is quiet, like he knows better than to expect an answer. She doesn't give one. She's already watching the wind again. There's a shift near the rocks. A loose thread of dust curls to the right. She lifts her chin slightly and says, "Last shot, 1.2, light breath, send." He fires. The steel rings again. But this time, it's not just a ring. It echoes. It carries across the range and bounces between the mesas. The sound feels different, like something finally settling into place. No one laughs. No one speaks. She lowers the clipboard to her lap. Her hand stays on the rangefinder, thumb resting against the adjustment knob. She doesn't turn to Tavis, doesn't nod. The moment doesn't belong to either of them. It belongs to the silence that follows precision. For the first time, the range flinches. The afternoon light deepens into a copper glow. draping Crimson Mesa in long shadows that stretch like fingers across the sand. The saguaro cacti cast jagged silhouettes against the cliffs, their arms motionless in the thickening heat. Mirage still ripples across the flats, but now even the mirage feels slower, like it too is watching. The air holds less sound. Conversations are shorter. Laughter has vanished. Tavis is steady now. Not confident, still too young for that, but no longer uncertain. He doesn't glance around to see if anyone's watching. He doesn't check his math or doubt her calls. He simply loads, breathes, and waits for her voice. 1.4, she says quietly. 3/4 breath. Hold just low. He fires. The steel sings again. At 820 meters. That tone carries like truth. A group of instructors clustered near the tent shift positions. One of them lowers his headset, adjusts his stance, and narrows his eyes toward her tarp. Another steps forward and cups his hand over his binoculars. No one speaks to her, but their attention has locked on. Lane 5. Previously laughing. Fires wide. The target remains silent. His spotter mutters and redials elevation, but his eyes drift sideways toward her lane. She doesn't notice, or pretends not to. Tavis resets. No hesitation now. Call it, he asks. She scans the wind, watching a line of dust swirl just past the cactus at 900 meters. 1 flat, she says. Hold right. Keep your shoulders loose. The next shot clips the outer edge of steel and glances off the metal with a sharp edge. But it also nicks something else. A saguaro standing 10 feet to the left of the plate jerks subtly. A half-inch groove appears along its skin, where the round skimmed just close enough to score it. Someone shouts from behind the line, not angry, just startled. Did she just shave a cactus? A few shooters look up from their benches. The instructor near the tent lowers his clipboard. The whisper spreads without sound. No official calls it out. No one congratulates. But the space around her has changed. The men near the rear start calculating based on her last wind call. One repeats it to his spotter, pretending it's his own. Another lifts his scope and stares toward her, not at her gear, not at her hands, just at her. The kind of stare reserved for things you don't understand. Her posture hasn't changed. She still sits beneath the faded tarp, one leg folded under the other, clipboard resting on her thigh. Her rangefinder stays on its crate, untouched for the past 10 minutes. She watches the air with her eyes alone. The spotter scope beside her, wrapped in stitched canvas, remains unused. It's not a tool she needs. The environment itself speaks to her. Tavis takes another shot. Hit. He doesn't ask for a read anymore. He just waits. She gives one. The bullet finds steel again. He's not the best shooter here, but under her instruction, he now has the best streak. Behind them, no one mentions his name. The sound of silence starts to feel louder than the rifle cracks. Jokes have stopped. Movements are slower. Shooters take more time between rounds, listening, trying to measure what she sees. One team completely stops shooting, waiting to catch her next correction and mirror it. They don't ask if it's right. They assume it is. Sergeant Kane emerges from the operations tent. He doesn't speak at first, just stands beside the lead instructor, scanning the field. Then his gaze settles on her. He walks forward, not fast, not angry, just curious in a way that makes the air tighten. He stops 3 paces behind her, watches without speaking. She senses him but doesn't look back. 1.6. She says to Tavis, no wind call, full breath, send it. The shot breaks. Steel answers. Kane folds his arms. Where'd you learn to read like that? His tone is level, not mocking, not amazed, just even. She tilts her head slightly but doesn't turn. Out where the wind has room to speak. She replies, not defiant, not proud, just factual. The instructor beside Kane watches her carefully. then glances down at her notes. He sees no digital device, no telemetry screen, no ballistic software. Just a range card covered in pencil marks and thumb smudges. The paper's corners are curled from heat. It's the kind of card most throw away after one use. She's been using it all day. He starts to ask a question, then doesn't. Instead, he says quietly to Kane, she's not guessing. She's reading better than the systems. Another round hits steel. Someone down the line sighs, loud and frustrated. Tavis blinks, half smiles, then resets. He says nothing. More instructors walk forward, not close enough to speak, just enough to see. Her range position, once isolated, has become an island of stillness in a field filled with men adjusting, second-guessing, frowning. She hasn't moved more than a few inches since mid-morning. The sun has dropped toward the canyon rim now, throwing elongated shadows from every cactus on the field. The grazed one stands among them with its new mark like a witness. The range hasn't declared anything official. No announcement has been made. But no one is calling her lucky anymore. Her voice continues measured, exact, unshaken. The range has not crowned her. It has simply gone quiet. And in that quiet, she has already taken the lead. Not by holding a weapon, but by wielding something rarer clarity. The sun dips low, turning the range into a landscape of shadow and fire. Rifles cast long silhouettes across the concrete, stretching toward the distant steel targets like fingers pointing at judgment. The air cools just slightly, enough for breath to feel heavier. Dust hangs low across the flats, undisturbed, waiting. Even the cactus arms seem stiller now. Sergeant Kane steps forward and raises his voice. Full cease. One shot. Cold bore. 1,200 meters. His words slice through the quiet. The men look up from their scopes. Targets at that distance are almost never hit cold. Not without practice. Not without full prep. There's no warm-up. No spotting shot. Just one round. Hit or miss. That's the measure. Tavis stiffens. His face goes pale. He checks the rifle's bolt, then glances at her. His mouth opens, but the words don't come right away. Then, loud enough for everyone to hear, he says, she should take it. A few shooters chuckle. One snorts. Someone mutters, sure. Let the poet have a turn. Another adds, maybe she can write it a love letter while it sails wide. But Kane doesn't laugh. He studies her. His expression is unreadable. No smirk. No challenge. Just a quiet kind of question behind his eyes. You good for it? He asks. She doesn't nod, doesn't blink, just stands. The rifle waits, propped on its bipod. She walks toward it with no ceremony, no pause. The light cuts across her face, setting fire to the dust in her hair. She crouches low, checks the level, adjusts the cheek rest by a fraction, and dials the scope 2 clicks right, 1 down. Each movement is exact. Nothing wasted. She doesn't ask for wind. She's already seen it. She doesn't glance around. The other shooters pretend to busy themselves, but no one looks away. Not this time. She lies prone. The desert settles around her. The tarp flaps once and goes still. A beetle scuttles near her boot, then veers off, as if even the land knows what's coming. Her finger rests lightly on the trigger. The rifle becomes an extension of stillness, not threat. The scope cradles the steel plate in its crosshairs. But she doesn't rush. She breathes in once, out, then again, slower. Kane watches from behind, hands folded behind his back. He says nothing. She presses the trigger. The rifle cracks. The sound cuts clean through the canyon. A dust cloud kicks up near the target, a flash of movement that's barely visible at this range. A second passes, then another. The steel sings. It doesn't ring so much as resonate, like a slow chime struck by something sacred. The sound rolls down the slope, across the desert floor, and into every lane behind her. No one speaks. No one moves. She rises slowly, brushing dust from her elbow. Her face doesn't change. No smile, no pride, just breath, and then stillness again. The other shooters stay silent. Some lower their weapons. A few adjust their scopes just for something to do with their hands. One kneels to tighten a strap that doesn't need tightening. The wind picks up slightly, brushing past her like an acknowledgment. She steps back, wipes her hands on her faded pants, and says nothing. Kane finally exhales. Hit confirmed, he says, voice low. 1,200 meters, first round. That's all. She doesn't wait for applause. There is none. Not here. Not in a place where the truth is made of steel and silence. She returns to her crate beneath the tarp and picks up her rangefinder again. It's still warm from the sun. Her hand settles over it like it always has. The echo fades, but its weight doesn't. Nobody dares to laugh. No one dares to follow. There are no congratulations, no claps on the back, just the dry wind, the long shadows, and the ringing that lingers longer than it should. Something has shifted. The range hasn't crowned her, but it has stopped testing her. There's nothing left to ask. The silence after the shot is the kind that settles in layers. It reaches past the cactus groves and slides beneath the rifles still cradled by men who now hold them differently. The sound of steel ringing at 1,200 meters has faded, but its echo lingers. Not in the air, but in the stillness of bodies that have stopped moving. No one speaks. No one dares. Sergeant Kane lowers his clipboard slowly, as if unsure what to do with his hands now. He doesn't look at her. Not yet. He stares instead at the target, as if trying to memorize the shape of the moment. Behind him, dust lifts faintly off the ground, carried by a gentler wind than before. Up in the tower, the senior range observer begins his descent. He's been watching from the steel glass booth all afternoon, saying nothing. Now, he steps carefully down the metal stairs, boots clanging softly, slower with each step. The other instructors clear a path. No one asks why he's coming. They already know. She hasn't moved. She remains beneath the tarp, legs crossed at the ankle, rangefinder resting loosely in one hand. Her expression hasn't changed. No smile, no shift in posture. The only difference is that now, no one looks past her. They look at her. The observer approaches without introduction. He reaches into his front pocket and removes a flat, silver coin. Its edges burnished, the surface marked with the emblem of the Crimson Mesa range. Without speaking, he extends it toward her. She takes it without ceremony. There's no nod, no handshake, just the silent exchange of one fact between two people who understand what it means. Around them, shooters begin to pack. Some move slowly, pretending to clean gear that doesn't need cleaning. Others grip their rifles tighter, waiting for someone else to speak first. A few disassemble quietly and walk off the line without a word. The man at lane 3 mutters something under his breath, wipes his scope, then slings his pack and doesn't look back. A senior marksman, one of the early favorites, the one who missed his own 1,000-meter shot, walks past her tarp. He stops at the edge of the concrete, kneels down, and removes his gloves. They're high-grade leather, creased with years of use. He sets them carefully on the edge of the dust, fingers curled slightly inward, palms up. He stands, looks once toward her, then walks away without speaking. Kane finally steps forward. His boots crunch against the ground with deliberate weight. He stops just outside her tarp's shadow. New record, he says, his voice neutral. 1,200, cold bore. Name attached is The Quiet Eye. He pauses, watching her face, but she doesn't react. Not visibly. He nods to himself. That'll go on the board tonight. Behind him, the range board stands tall near the tent, a grid of etched brass and black laminate. A trainee takes a rag to it, clearing dust from the upper corner where space has been held open for years. No one's ever reached that number clean. Until now. The men who remain speak only in glances. One shrugs at another, gestures toward her with an open palm. then walks away before anything is said. A younger cadet leans toward an instructor and asks a question too quietly to hear. The instructor doesn't answer, just follows the path of the wind with his eyes. She places the coin beside her on the crate. It glints once in the fading sun, then settles into shadow. She returns to her previous posture, hands folded loosely, gaze drifting across the range. There is nothing triumphant in her posture, no invitation to celebrate, just the continuation of stillness. The light continues to fade. The canyon edges take on a blue hue as the sun drops behind the ridge. Shadows grow longer. The cactus arms, once dramatic in the harsh daylight, now blur into silhouette. One of them, just beyond the 900-meter line, still bears the shallow groove from earlier barely visible, but undeniably real. Kane turns to walk away. He doesn't say anything more. He doesn't need to. His silence is agreement. So is everyone else's. As the last shooters leave, the sound of bootsteps fades into the dry hush of evening. Her gear remains untouched. No one approaches her. No one offers congratulations. But no one dismisses her now either. The instructors speak in low tones near the tower. They begin discussing range formatting, rifle allocation for next season. But the tone has shifted. Less rigid, less absolute. They use words like review, revisit, restructure. On the board, someone finishes engraving the new record. The last stroke is quiet, almost reverent. The nameplate reads, "The Quiet Eye, 1200 M cold bore." It glows faintly under the last golden light. She stands as the wind picks up again. The tarp flutters behind her. The coin remains on the crate. She doesn't take it with her. It's not a trophy. It's acknowledgment. She walks away without a word. The range doesn't stop her. No one calls after her. The gate swings open, then clicks shut behind her. Nothing explodes. No crowd follows. But something has ended. Something else has started. The steel remains where it always has, but now it knows her name. She moves without urgency. The tarp behind her flaps once, then stills. She gathers her gear quietly, folding the sun-bleached range card into the notebook she never used, coiling the rangefinder strap around her hand like it belongs there. No one steps forward to help. No one dares interrupt. But all eyes follow her. Her boots brush through the dust with every step. The wind lifts the edges of her jacket as she walks. From the tents, from the benches, from under the shade of cacti. They watch her pack up the tools that just changed their understanding of what precision really looks like. There is no salute, no word of praise, but silence has weight. And now it follows her like a shadow. Sergeant Kane approaches, slower than usual. His shoulders are squared, but there's something different in the way he stands, less command, more awareness. He stops a few paces from her. Name he asks? Quiet. She finishes zipping the canvas case. Her eyes stay on the horizon. Doesn't matter, she says. Just don't make the next one wait this long to be heard. He watches her for a second more, then nods. No further questions. She turns toward the gate. Her path is slow, unbroken. A single line of dust rises behind her boots, then begins to fall, fading like breath in cold air. The sun slips behind the ridge, casting the range in bronze and blue. The cacti stretch long arms across the dirt. Her silhouette narrows as she nears the exit. The gate clicks shut behind her. Kane turns back toward the instructors. His voice carries just enough to be heard. That record holds. No one argues. On the range board, beneath etched numbers and worn brass tags, the newest line reads clear as the shot that made it true. Record the Quiet Eye, 1,200 meters cold bore. No one speaks it aloud. It doesn't have to be said. It's already done. She never raised her voice. She never asked for permission. Yet with every wind call, every quiet correction, she reshaped the range around her. What began as a day of dismissal became a quiet legacy, etched not in applause but in stillness. She didn't need a title. She didn't need a name. Her precision spoke for her, and the world, at last, listened. This story is about more than hitting a target. It's about knowing your worth even when no one else sees it. It's about choosing clarity over noise, purpose over pride, and leaving behind something unshakable without ever needing to be thanked. If her quiet strength moved you, take a moment to reflect. Share your thoughts in the comments, and follow for more stories of simple people who carry unseen power, change the world around them, and walk away without needing to be seen.